believe that Black voters are worried about the same thing that all American voters are worried about, the economy. I think that when we look at the southern border, I think that Americans are concerned about immigration. I also think that there's an anxiety about global politics that is affecting all Americans in ways that we have not seen in generations.
Welcome back, warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. So today I wanted to do a video about some Americans leaving Biden and going towards Trump. That's right. We have more and more minorities that are leaving Biden and the Democrat Party and supporting Donald Trump. But before we get into it, I want you all to remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Remember, you have to watch the video all the way to the very end. Oh, and let me make a point about that notification bell. Some of you have reported that your notifications are not working. So go back and turn them off and turn them back on again and do a test to see if it works. So I've gotten some comments about that. And also I am on Rumble. Chat with me, Linda B, is all one word. And follow me on social media, X, TikTok, Instagram as Chat with me, Linda B. And I'm also on Patreon as Chat with me, Linda B. Now, without further ado, let's get into it.
Democrats and Republicans are vying for the crucial Black vote, but is either party getting it right? The projected number of Black voters in the U.S. is expected to reach more than 34 million by November of 2024, according to the Pew Research Center. But a recent poll shows that only 38% of young Black voters say they are motivated to vote this year. That poll, conducted by the group In Our Own Voice, National Black Women's Reproductive Justice Agenda, also shows 25% of young Black voters have thought about withholding their vote as a form of protest. Are Democrats losing Black voters? Are Republicans gaining any? And who's getting it right and who's getting it wrong? It's time to wake up, Washington. Joining us now to break it all down, our founder and CEO of Blueprint Strategies, Democratic strategist Antoine C. Wright, and co-founder of Bass Public Affairs, Republican strategist Dina Bass Williams. Dina and Antoine, thank you so much for being here. You know, recent polling shows Democrats struggling more with voters of color. I want to go first to a CBS News poll from late February, which found Biden's support among Black voters down from 87% in 2020 to 76% this year. And then a USA Today Suffolk University poll in January found Biden with just 63% support among Black voters. Antoine, why are we seeing this now? And do you think voters of color are fairly represented in public polling?
I do not. In fact, polling is a snapshot of the time, but it has never defined the time, particularly when it comes to the African seed and the American son and daughter. Look, the election is in November. Polls in January and February, when we do not have a declarative nominee, do not mean much, particularly when you're talking about Black voters. Now, does that mean that the Democratic Party and Joe Biden or any other Democrat can take Black voters for granted? Absolutely not. We've never been a monolithic constituency group, but we have always been a very decisive voting bloc. And you can win with us, but you can certainly lose without us. That's why I've been saying all around this country that Black folks are casting a survivor vote in this election. And what that means is that whoever wins in November is going to have impact on whether or not our communities thrive or survive. We take that responsibility very strongly. That's why I don't think a poll 6, 7, 8 months out means anything about the intensity of what we feel.
So, Dina, now to you on the polling. Do you view the recent surveys showing less enthusiasm for Biden and Democrats as a turning point for Black voters?
I do see it as a turning point, but I will have to say I agree with Antoine in that polling is certainly a snapshot of a moment in time. But what we've seen with President Biden's polling in the African American community, that as we take these snapshots in time, and as we've taken these snapshots in time since 2021, he is hemorrhaging the Black vote. And what we also understand is that the Democratic Party cannot win an election without Black voters, and the vote has to be at a 90% level. You know, the polling is showing everything from President Trump having a 15 to 20% favorables among African Americans, which, I mean, the fact that that's a low number, but for Democrats to lose that percentage of the Black vote, they simply cannot win without it. So I think the thing that's exciting about this is that finally both parties will have to pay attention and will aggressively court the Black vote. Democrats will hopefully not take the Black vote for granted, and Republicans can finally see that there's a chance to make a difference and do significant engagement in the African American community.
Yeah, so even I've given you guys my percentages before. I'm hoping for 50% of Black vote go to Donald Trump. And I really do, because our certain communities really get negatively impacted by still voting Democrat. And it's so hard not to put labels on things. I'm getting, honestly, you all in the comments, some of you, and I am as well, am getting weary of putting color labels on people. But I'll work around it some kind of way. I'll have to pray about that. Okay. But certain communities do vote Democrat more. They just do. In certain, in rural areas, they tend to vote Republican. Metropolitan areas are Democrat, and metropolitan areas have way more people, but there are more rural areas out there. So I really believe that Donald Trump is probably going to get between at least 30% of, minority voters, really. And Biden is hemorrhaging. He is, because now with this illegal immigration, that is a problem that more negatively impacts certain communities, and these people are seeing, wait a minute, it wasn't like this under the Trump administration. So people can demonize Donald Trump all they want to, call him whatever, all you want to, but the facts are the facts. Things were better, interest rates, gas prices, grocery, crime, the border, everything was better under him. Prove me wrong. Or is you just going to get emotional and say you're going to vote blue no matter who? I already told y'all, those of you who say that are not being smart. I'm just putting it out there. You need to look at what impacts your community and how it affects you and vote that. And I am going to vote my values. I simply am. And people are waking up to the deception that's coming from the left. And it's coming from the left, who owns the media, the schools, everything, and pushing agendas off on people and saying they're diversity, equity, and inclusion, but that does not include diversity of thought, just diversity of what you look like and what your orientation is.
So speaking of former President Trump, he's been very vocal about what he believes he has done for Black Americans. Let's take a listen.
Honestly, it should be 100% of the Black people should vote for Trump, because I did more for Black people than any president other than Abraham Lincoln. It's true.
So to both of you, and Antoine, we can start with you. Are those comments from Trump fair? And just what's your general reaction?
Not just no, but hell no. Look, just because the former president says it does not mean it's true. In fact, when you think about what he did and some of the things he said regarding Black folks, whether it's calling African countries SO countries, whether it's calling a Black female who worked with him a dog looking into a camera, whether it's saying arrest or fire the SOBs when it comes to Black NFL players kneeling in.
This is the thing, how he thinks just because someone says something against a Black person or against a country that's predominantly a certain skin color, so to speak, that it's because they're that skin color. And that's how people on the left think. His thinking is warped, because if I say something against somebody and they're, a certain ethnicity, I'm not saying it because they're that ethnicity. I'm saying it because they're doing something I don't like. Aside from that, we're all the human race anyway. So why does it have to be that person is saying it because that person is Black or because they are a female? No one's talking bad about somebody because they're a female. He's focusing on those very few instances that he's mentioning right now, those very few, and he's making it, Donald Trump said it because that person is a female or because they're this. No, it's because of things that they were doing aside from what they look like. We've all said something or thought things about people that don't look like us, but it wasn't because the fact that they don't look like us. It was because you disagree with something that they're doing or thinking. That's it. And they just happen to be another ethnicity. But people on the left make everything about race. They do.
In response to police brutality and violence. Look, Donald Trump does not have a stool to stand on. And make no mistake, Black folks, no matter how tuned in they are or not so tuned in they may not be, they're never going to cast their vote for a racist, bigoted, someone who spews hate, someone who pledges their allegiance to white nationalism, Christian white nationalism, and all the things Donald Trump stands for and who he stood with. Now, the caveat.
Now, I disagree with you on that, brother. Because he said Black voters will not cast their vote for a bigot. Well, they did because they voted for Joe Biden. Y'all voted, some of you voted for Jim Crow Joe. Yes, you did cast your vote for a bigot because you voted for Joe Biden, the true bigot. Oh, you remember the one that said, if you got trouble figuring out whether or not you want to vote for me, then you ain't Black. Oh, you remember that little comment he said? Oh, yeah, that was Joe Biden. Oh, let me see. Joe Biden, him and Hillary Clinton were mentored by Robert C. Byrd, a Klansman. What do you know? Oh, and what else, Jim Crow Joe? You didn't want your kids going to school in a racial jungle. Wow. We actually did vote for a bigot, didn't we?
Caveat to that, or the key to that, is Black folks staying home in this upcoming election is just the same as pledging their allegiance to former President Trump and Trumpism. And that's why we have to do everything we can as Democrats to motivate and educate folks on what's at stake in this next election.
Gina, what's your reaction?
Well, my reaction to that is, first of all, I think that it is important for us to recognize that Democrats have used that playbook for, I've been doing this for 40 years. I worked in my first campaign when I was 11 years old. We elected the first Black woman to the city council in Columbus, Georgia. She happened to be a Republican. And 40 years ago, Democrats were calling Blacks like me sellouts, and they were calling Republicans, white Republicans, racist. So now there's a love affair with the old Republican guard, and there's a hate affair with President Trump. When we look at racist rhetoric, Joe Biden said that he didn't want his children to go to schools with Black kids because it would be a racial jungle. Joe Biden called a grown man, Congressman Richardson, a boy. These he said that he called President Obama clean. This is an Ivy League educated man. Why would he not be clean? These same comments from a President Trump, and they're, joke, like, I don't condone them on either side, but these same types of comments from a Democrat, if those comments came from a Republican, they would not get a pass. We give them a pass for Democrats. So, like, for 40 years, we have seen this. I have seen this page from the Democratic playbook. What I would like to see is results. And so what I'm excited about in this election and in this season is that Black Americans, 20% of African Americans look at Donald Trump favorably. Now let's just look at the media. Let's look at, every other day that he's being accused of some crime, he does have a way of not being the most politic person in the way he speaks. But even with that, 20% of African Americans view him favorably because of the results. We have to recognize that in this season, even though the Biden administration is taking a victory lap around the economy, most American families are feeling a crunch at the gas pumps and in the grocery store. This victory lap that the Biden administration continues to take, most Americans are looking around thinking, where are the wins? And so Black Americans are feeling that as well.
Antoine, I saw you shaking your head a little bit there. Wanted to give you a moment to respond.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but look, let's just look at what we can see on the surface. We have a Black woman who's vice president of the United States, more Black women on our federal courts than all other presidents combined. Black unemployment rate at the lowest it's been on record. More African Americans have health insurance than they ever have in the history of this world. $7 billion to 8 historical Black colleges and universities, including wiping out the debt. We've closed the Black racial wealth gap, the most diverse administration in our nation's history. I mean, I can go on and on about the real-time, real-life accomplishments that this president has done. And I will go on record to say he's been the most consequential president for Black Americans in the history of this country, particularly with the margins he's had in the House and the Senate. Now, has that translated to every single Black American in this country? Absolutely not, because for 200 plus years, we've been neglected. So things do not change in 4 years, but we've made tremendous progress. And it's been Donald Trump and Republicans trying to erode away reproductive freedom. It's been Donald Trump and Republicans trying to take away our rights to vote and our rights to have basic fundamental freedoms that my parents and grandparents fought for. So I think there's a real contrast to be made in this election.
Dina, I want to give you a moment to respond. Yeah.
This is what I won't do. I'm not going to paint Republicans as saints and Democrats as devils, because I believe that there's enough there is enough bad in both, right? But I'm a Republican, and I'm a Republican for some very specific reasons, because I do not use euphemistic terms like reproductive rights. I call it what it is. It's abortion. It's exterminating a life. And I think that and for me, as a woman and as a Black woman, when I see most abortion clinics in Black neighborhoods, when I see that we represent a third of the population, yet 33% of the babies aborted, then to me that's a problem. But I also want to go back to some of the other things that were said. And this is where we as Black Americans and as American voters need to not use selective outrage. For instance, we understand that under President Trump, he made moves to advance support in the HBCU community in ways that had not been done before. We should celebrate him for that. The funding for sickle cell research, we should celebrate him for that. Closing the wealth gap under President Trump, we should celebrate him for that. And in the same way that I, as a Black American, will celebrate President Biden for taking those wins and advancing them. So we're getting better. We're moving closer, and I support that. But I'm not going to sit and diminish what President Trump did to advance HBCUs. 5 generations of my family attended historically Black colleges and universities, so I support that. I'm not, but so to say that he did nothing and that he destroyed, is he impolitic? Absolutely. Is President Trump, will I invite him to Sunday dinner? Probably not. He's not that guy, right? But to deny the advances that African Americans gained under his administration is to me, that is selective outrage, and I won't do it.
First of all, the little young guy, you don't know what you're talking about, because all the stuff he's talking about with putting certain people up in positions. See, that tokenism works with a lot of people, but they do it to get our vote. We need to stop thinking like that. Ooh, they selected this person. Ooh, this person is a female. Oh, this person looks like this. Oh, then I'm going to vote for them because they're for us. No, they use that tactic. It's called tokens. It's called mascots. Thomas Sowell calls them mascots. They put up a mascot. This is what Malcolm X said in my Malcolm X video. You check it out. He said they use a mascot. These people are sellouts that are doing the evil race's bidding, okay? And then because they look a certain way, then we cast our vote for that party. That's a tactic, okay? That little young man, he looks young to me, didn't look at the communities, how they look right now that are Democrat. I want him to look at that. Look at how they're suffering. Look at how there's high crime, high poverty. Those abortion clinics are in Black neighborhoods. Call it what it is. It's getting rid of a baby. It's not a woman's reproductive right. Get away with that. And then they want to defund the police so that more of these crimes and violence can happen in these neighborhoods. So these people are being unalived as unborn children and as people, men getting rid of each other in the street. So the Democrats are, we've been hoodwinked by them because everything that actually hurts our community, therefore. And yet we give them a pass because they call the other side racist and because they put up a person in power or in a certain position who look like us. And that's enough for most of us. Get it together.
Well, I don't call it selective outrage. I just came here to speak the truth about what Joe Biden has done for Black America, and no one
So
can
will you
debate
not
when.
say that at that time?
But I'm not here to talk about. I'm not here to defend President Trump's lackluster record when it comes to Black Americans, particularly when you think about what he's done to erode back the progress. And look, I don't know where you
Not
may
true.
have carved your information from, but
We don't know where you got your
I travel
information
to
from.
Black communities all over this country. I don't see abortion clinics on every corner. What I do know is that when it comes to women making their own healthcare decisions, and those decisions remain between her and her doctor, I do note that it's been Donald Trump's right-wing activist court that rolled back those protections, so much so that a woman born today or a little girl born today will have less rights than her parents and her grandparents about what's said about her body. And truth be told, you can say what you want about how to word it, but when it comes down to it, abortion is healthcare. We show up at clinics all around this country, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, to get the necessary healthcare we need from places like Planned Parenthood and others. And it's been Donald Trump and the Republicans trying to roll back the clocks of progress when it comes to the Affordable Care Act. By the way, Affordable
Okay, first of all, that ain't progress, getting unaliving your children. How is that progress? This, Lord have mercy. But anyway, do you hear what this foolishness is? Talking about abortion is reproductive, is healthcare. That ain't healthcare. Oh, I could contain myself. And I'm sorry, y'all, for talking over the video. Please forgive me, but I just, ooh.
Care Act passed and ushered by former President Obama, the same man who Donald Trump says was not even born as a U.S. citizen in this country.
So let's Dina, I just want to move on because we only have a few moments. But if we're going to talk about issues, and Dina, I'll go to you on this first. I mean, what are the top issues that Black voters care about from your perspective?
I believe that Black voters are worried about the same thing that all American voters are worried about: the economy. I think that when we look at the southern border, I think that Americans are concerned about immigration. I also think that there's an anxiety about global politics that is affecting Black Americans and all Americans in ways that we have not seen in generations. So I think that when you look at who will be able to tackle those issues, who Americans will trust with those issues, that is how you will determine who's going to be our next president. But I will also say this, we have a third party candidate in Robert F. Kennedy that should give Democrats pause. I know that some people say it's going to take away from Trump voters as well, but when you have someone like Robert F. Kennedy, a former Democrat who is polling at 13, 14, 15%, Joe Biden should be concerned about that, because African Americans are looking at RFK as an attractive alternative.
So on that, topic of political parties, third parties, I want to go to you both on this. Antoine, we can start for you. Do you think both Republicans and Democrats have taken Black voters for granted?
I do not, because when I look at my party and I look at the progress we've made, and that's how you measure whether or not someone's taking anything for granted. We've continued to treat Black voters as an investment, not an expense. If you look at our party structure, if you look at the leaders of our party, I think they're very reflective of the American soil as a whole, because the browning of America is happening before our eyes. And if you look at our policy agenda, the things we advocated for, and quite frankly, the things that Republicans have fought against and trying to take away, I'll put Democrats on the winning column any day of the week. Is there work to be done? Absolutely. The biggest room in any house is the room for improvement. But these things, elections are come down to a binary choice. And if you look at what Republicans have done and what they've not done and what they've advocated against and what they've advocated for, it does not line up or match up, quite frankly, with what Black Americans care about and what their priorities are. In fact, I would argue that the things that Republicans say and advocate for when it comes to Black Americans is very reflective of the abusive language that we heard in 1964 that we're hearing from them in 2024.
It's good that he mentioned 1964, because that was the passing of the Civil Rights Bill, and 1965, the Voting Rights Bill. And let me see which party voted that through in Congress. Oh, that's right. It was the majority of the Republican Party. The Republicans pushed that through. He might be confused because the president at the time was LBJ, a Democrat. He was a Democrat, but he was racist. He said, I'll have those Indians voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And welfare was put in place. So in my eyes, the Democratic Party is the party of welfare, taking the father out of the home, crime in the neighborhood, not allowing you school choice, defunding the police, which means you don't have a safe neighborhood. And so all they got to do is put up a few people who look a certain way into positions of power. And then now that's enough to get certain people to vote a certain way. And that's all they got to do. They're not looking at their neighborhoods. They're not looking at the illegal immigration. They're looking at the media and their warped and edited clips of Donald Trump, which are edited and cut off. Donald Trump actually said, you guys remember the Charlottesville incident where the people were saying Jews will not replace us and all of that. And he said something about good people on both sides, but he also condemned racism. Full stop. Donald Trump condemned racism, but mainstream media did not play that. They cut it off and put their narrative around it. But when you go back and look at the whole clip, he did condemn it. He condemned it. He sure did. There was a lot of other things, a lot of other clips that he's said. Donald Trump has said things, but the clips were edited and cut off and then talked about for like 30 minutes at the CNN roundtable how horrible Donald Trump is. Even when I was in my Trump derangement syndrome years, I was watching CNN and I said, okay, I get it. You don't like the man. Talk about something else. Y'all gonna talk about Donald Trump all day. I should have known something then was wrong. Something was wrong. So Dems control the media. Y'all know that too, right? So they can cut off what Donald Trump said that was good and act like he didn't say it. But when you go back and listen to the whole clip, yeah. So y'all stop just spewing out the news and mainstream media clips and stuff acting like it's fact, because it's not.
Dina, do you think they've been taken for granted, Black voters?
I do believe that the Democratic Party has long taken the Black vote for granted. And I think that evidence of that is that a man as controversial as Donald J. Trump is polling at a 20% favorable in the Black community. I think that Democrats have taken the Black vote for granted. And I think evidence of that is the fact that a candidate like RFK is polling at 13%. And so the results are will come in November. But for me, I will not pretend that there is not room. I unlike Antoine, I'm not going to roll off all this we have taken Blacks for granted, right? Because if you ask most Black Americans, they will say the reason people are sounding off on Joe Biden is because they're tired of Democrats trotting out the importance of Black votes every 4 years, but doing nothing of significance for Black Americans. So yes, Democrats are taking Black votes for granted. And I think finally Republicans will see that there is an advantage to aggressively pursuing the Black vote.
Well, you guys, that was a very spirited conversation between a Democrat strategist and a Republican strategist. And you all know what side I am for. If you don't know by now, let me tell you, I am a conservative. I am a Christian first and foremost. I am a child of God, an overcomer. Yes, I belong to the Lord. So my voting reflects that. I just cannot go with things that the Democrat Party stands for because they're talking about, there are a lot of Planned Parenthood, clinics in neighborhoods, certain types of neighborhoods, minority neighborhoods. So I remember taking my husband, out to dinner for his birthday, and we rode through an area of Atlanta, and I looked up and I saw Planned Parenthood. And I looked at the neighborhood and I said, And when I looked up the zip codes of a lot of Planned Parenthood clinics, they are in minority neighborhoods. I'm just saying, they are. So we have to be smarter than going along with letting someone put up a mascot or a token in front of us and we just vote for it because we just like seeing people who look like us or who are female. Oh, she's a woman. I'm going to vote for her. You better look at that person. You better look at that woman. I mean, you got to look at people for who they are, not what they're trying to get you to vote off of emotion instead of facts. We need to be factual. We need to look deeper. Don't believe the media. Don't believe that, because they twist things that the Republicans and Donald Trump, they say and do, and they make it seem like they're saying something racist when they are not, because they've edited the clip a certain way. Keep telling you all, they edit clips. They edit the clips. They don't show you the whole clip. And we are too lazy to go in and do a little research and listen to the whole clip. You got to do better than that. Okay, but that's it for today's video. I hope you guys liked it. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, check that notifications to make sure that it's working. Turn it off and turn it back on, because some of you are complaining that your notifications, you're not getting your notifications. And you're also saying that you're not able to comment on videos. I don't know what's going on with that. I did my other message, my message to my supporters, because something's going on and my, views have gone down. Some other conservatives have complained. So, we're going to do what we got to do, because that's not right. I fight the power, the evil power now. You're not going to tell me, you're not going to do stuff to me and I not do anything about it. But you all be blessed. Have a great day. And as I always say, march on, warriors.